This will be for the September-October public forum debate topic, which is resolved. The United States federal government should substantially expand its surveillance infrastructure along its southern border. So let's first talk about the definitions. The first word, or the first term, is the United States federal government, so it would consist of the Senate, the House, and also the different branches like the President and the Supreme Court, but I would say that it primarily consists of Congress because it's passing bills to have a certain policy proposal. The second term is surveillance infrastructure, and you have to keep in mind that this refers to technology for detecting and identifying border activity. It's not just identifying illegal border crossings or trying to regulate or securitize immigrants, it's also trying to sort of regulate criminal activity that may happen at the border as well, trafficking, drug cartels, all of that is also included. The last definition is the southern border, and this mainly and mostly consists of the Mexico-US border that is right beneath the United States. It's connected to states like California, Texas, and even other states along the south, which is directly connected to the country of Mexico. So let's now talk about affirmative ground. The first affirmative contention is wildlife trade. The argument is that surveillance and increasing surveillance can stop wildlife trade with emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence that would prevent the spread of diseases like zoonotic diseases that occurs when you mix a bunch of species together and just put them out on a wildlife market because those are oftentimes prone to disease. And the idea of trading wildlife also leads to biodiversity loss because you're by nature killing off massive populations of exotic animals. And so the idea is that if you increase surveillance technologies, if you actually increase surveillance of those crimes, it would deter them, and that would prevent people from trading the animals in the first place. And so you can argue that there are multiple different economic and even environmental benefits to increasing surveillance in one particular instance. Another affirmative contention idea is cartels. Drone technology can also help and track and seize cartel activity, as well as seize smuggled narcotics to prevent deaths. And so the idea is that the majority of the cartel activity happens inter-border or interstate, which is between countries, which is how they are able to transport their own activities from one place to another. And so the idea is that if you increase border surveillance through drone technology, other types of advanced surveilling methods to cut down on those criminal activities. So now let's talk about negative ground. The first negative contention idea are remittances. If you increase border surveillance, that causes less migrants to come to the United States because they believe that the border surveillance would only sort of seek to arrest them, or maybe even there are migrants that are trying to come illegally to the United States, or maybe even they're trying to come legally and they're still cut off because there's more surveillance, because now they have to increase passports, more documentation, so the overall process takes much more time. The argument is that border surveillance by in and of itself would cut off remittances by deterring more migrants and preventing them from coming to the United States. But remittances are the source of economic growth in their home countries. So, for example, let's say that a family from Mexico tries to move to the United States, and then the entire process of moving from Mexico to the United States now is much larger because there's much more surveillance, so more documentation, and more processes that you have to go through. That means that you're less prone to going to the United States, so that means that they can't get a job in the US, they can't get more money, and they can't send that back to Mexico. And oftentimes that money is the source of growth in Mexico because you have to send that money back to your home country. And so with less economic growth in their respective home countries, that means that their overall economic growth is now stifled in comparison to a world where there are more frequent border crossings. The second negative idea is irregular migration. If you increase surveillance along the border, that incentivizes migrants to take more dangerous routes that don't have surveillance but are far more dangerous. For example, if there's a mountain range along the southern border that possibly surveillance can't get access to, or maybe there's a bunch of trees and forests that drone technology is extremely difficult to go through, that means that migrants would probably go through those areas because they believe that the drone technology can't get to them, or maybe there's even just like less border surveillance. And so if you increase surveillance, migration is inevitable, so it means that people will just take those more dangerous paths, which are far more dangerous and might even lead to excess deaths that can be preventable.